We're on the same sheet.
All right, welcome everybody. It is 9:06 a.m. I'll call this meeting to order. Harmony, just as soon as you're ready, if you would call the roll to confirm a quorum, please.
I could eat a whole bucket of this stuff.
All right, welcome everybody. It is 9:06 a.m.
Thanks, Matt.
Whole bucket of this stuff.
You had his hands on. I mean, just start yelling over it.
My mistake, it was off of mute. It is dinner.
Director Brown?
Here.
Director Cardenas?
Here.
Director Dowling? Director Keith? Director Litvak? Here. Director Olson?
Present.
Director Peterson?
Here.
Director Christopher?
Here.
Director Silvestrini?
Here.
Director Stevenson?
Here. Thank you. All right, we move into public comments. Do we have any public comments today? Do we have any online comments?
So I just want to recognize, and I might ask help from Chief Brown, Ed Brown, but we had an officer in Mill Creek basically trying to rescue a guy who was trying to end his life, and he jumped into the Jordan River to save this guy and risked his own life, and I think was successful doing that. And that's true heroism. That's true run into the problem and true putting his life on the line for one of our constituents. So I want to, Chief, what's the officer's name?
Mark Erickson.
I'm gonna cover that in my, okay, anyway, that's what this department's all about. I'm happy we have people like that out there watching over us.
Any other public comments? All right, item 3, recognition of Sheriff Rivera, Councilmember Bradley, and Deputy Mayor Litvak for their years of service to the Unified Police Department. So this is going to be a little weird, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand out here. I've got plaques for each of you. I'm going to ask Maz to join me, and Sheriff Rivera, you're up first. So what we're going to do is, if you can come stand in the middle over here.
Sorry for flying.
We wanted to make sure that we took a moment to thank each of these county members. This is already going to be a goofy meeting, but these county members who this is your last meeting with us. Sheriff, we've known each other for a long time. I really appreciate your dedication to the department. I think that as I took on this role of mayor, what I was getting myself into, definitely did not expect to have to be overseeing the reorganization of this department, and that has put us at odds on things. I think that's put a strain on relationships. It's not been easy. I'm really excited to get to this next point because I respect you so much. I've got a ton of appreciation for you.
Yeah.
Just really appreciate all of your dedication to the police department. So,
Thank you.
Thanks for everything you've done. Sure. Before you leave,
all right. I could have explained run of show real quick, so I've asked Maz to say a few things too, and then we'll open it up if there's any board members. We're not gonna sing happy birthday. So, well, we could do that.
I was just saying, thank you for all you've done for me and for the department. It's been a crazy ride for the last 7 years, but I've learned a lot. Just appreciate your kindness.
Great, thank you.
Board members have no preference.
Yeah, and I don't want to make this go on forever, but maybe it should. But Sheriff, I just want to say, we've worked together for a long time. And fortunately, I think actually fortunately for this department, this is not the first time that you've been dealing with a reorganization effectively. Some of us have been board members long enough to remember when we had some issues with respect to how the accounting and finance of this department worked and the accountability there. And the first thing that Sheriff Rivera did when she took office was to fix that and to make the budget of this department more transparent and to keep those of us who maybe had some concerns about that satisfied. And then the other thing that I witnessed, because was involved working on a team with the sheriff, when we saw Harriman leave and Riverton leave and Taylorsville leave, through all of that turmoil in this department. I know that's been super hard for the sheriff at the top, but also for the rank and file. But through that entire series of episodes, right? Sheriff Rivera has always had the interests of law enforcement in this county and in our communities top of mind. That and the welfare of the officers that serve this department. She has gone out of her way to try to make transitions that were hard. And there are times where maybe people could argue, oh, you should have fought for this or should have fought for that. But she took the big picture view that the most important thing that she could do was to preserve the integrity of law enforcement and to protect the jobs and the families of our officers. And for that, you are to be commended. I'm going to miss working with you. Well, we'll still work with you as county sheriff, but I'm going to miss having you be the CEO of this.
Yeah, appreciate that very much.
Well said. I agree.
Feels-
Sure. Okay, Councilmember Bradley.
Oh, boy.
14 years here, right? Since 2010, that long, yeah. But we just really appreciate your service to this department. I know your nickname will always be Mr. UPD. I also, Jim, I blame you for the stress and late night phone calls I've had in this role. Because I don't know if you all remember, but about a year and a half ago, when I was appointed as chair, somebody, Jeff, said, hey, Marcus should be chair. And I said, I think Jim should be chair as Mr. UPD. And you denied that. So I blame you for all the fun that I've had over the last year and a half. But we just really appreciate your dedication. We're going to miss you on this board and wish you all the best in your retirement as well.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm going to spend a few seconds, okay, if I may. Clearly, I was there at the evolution of UPD and with the idea that shared services and coordination among various law enforcement agencies was a very good way to go, and very much excited about that. And now I'm at the part where I'm at the de-evolution of it as well. The circle of life goes on, and things work out, but it's been kind of an interesting ride for me to see the beginning and also not the end by any means, but at least the major adjustment. But I want to just say that I've been very proud to serve on the board. I've been proud to serve on it because of the people out here, the administration, and the people in the street who make it work. I couldn't have asked for a better organization to be a part of a representation that makes you proud, because you've done such an excellent job. I'll never forget that. So thank you.
We're going to miss the institutional memory of Jim Bradley.
Well, that memory is leaving. Your time is perfect.
I mean, I have been, as a community council baby, I've been working with you on the county council for like 3 decades or something like that, right? And your calmness and your rational, moderation of disputes and things like that has been invaluable to not only this department, but Salt Lake County. And I know that we're not there yet, but thank you for your service to our county and to this department. Thank you.
And a great sense of humor.
Yes. Deputy Mayor Lidbeck. And nobody gets you after this. For this one, we're gonna do a big group photo, so. I'll be getting a big group photo, yeah. Aaron, to say it nicely, sometimes you're a pain in my ass.
That's my
Deeply respect you for it. You are incredible advocate for the county. You are incredible at what you do. It has been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more in this role, being able to work seriously. Just so much respect for you and all the work that you've done, and your dedication to this board. So you're gonna be missed, working with you in this capacity, but again, just appreciate you.
Thank you.
And just real quick, after I became chief, I asked Deputy Mayor Litvak to come meet with me. I still remember that meeting in your office, Government Center. I've always appreciated how kind you and your husband were. So thank you.
My pleasure. Relish that role.
We can't, we're gonna do a group photo with the board. And sure, so if you would all come out here, Danny's gonna give us direction on what to do, where to stand.
You look just fine.
I need you all to come out this way. You all are not very good at taking direction. Come out this way, over to this table. Yeah.
This lady is super smart, super compassionate, and super fair.
Thanks.
I'm good at details.
Yeah.
Scooch in just,
Do you mind?
Sharon.
Come over here.
scooch in a little bit more if you can. Just like that. And can you slide in just?
Okay, I like it.
Jim takes good direction.
It would be helpful if you, Harmony,
Harmony, can you black?
block the screen for just a second. When I don't know, let me minimize that. That's better. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Brad.
Yeah.
All right, we will move on to item 4, just vote the grant update. We're gonna hear from Sergeant Mike Mason, Department of Defense.
Morning. So it's time for our semi-annual VOCA grant update. And so we're about to finish year 1 of our grant. Everything's going well. Year 2 will begin July 1. And today I have Carmen Contreras and Sergeant Mike Mays, and I'll let them say a few words and then we can answer any questions. So Carmen, if you want to go first.
Good morning, everybody. I have had the privilege of working as a victim advocate, crime victim advocate for about 22 years now. 6 years as a volunteer and rest of the years as a crime victim advocate. And since I started volunteering, helping victims of crimes, I know the value of the volunteer program. And in our program, we have 5 pretty active volunteers that help the Midvale City, Sandy Islands community so far. 2 of those volunteers work in the office, help a lot, and the 5 of them are ready to respond on call outs to assist victims 24/7. They are always willing to help and be there for to help victims in the worst times of their lives, probably. We help victims of all types of crimes, maybe child abuse, child neglect, and all the way up to homicides and other crimes, violent crimes. We provide victims with referral services. We help them to navigate the judicial court system. So we provide lots of criminal justice advice. Help victims with OCA funds. We have had very difficult cases and we are victim advocates. So privileged, so honored to be there with people for people when they need us the most, when they need help the most. And I think that we can resume our job as advocates with a mission statement for the Victim Advocate Program. So our mission statement says, it is the mission of the Victim Services Program to provide consistent support to victims of violent crimes by ensuring that victims are treated with respect, fairness, and dignity. We strive to educate, empower, encourage, and provide guidance and support throughout the criminal justice process in an effort to reduce the overall trauma to victims. And I want to thank everybody for your support to the Victim Advocates Advocacy Program. It is very important that there's someone for help people when officers are busy, investigators are busy doing other things, and we help victims not only at the crime scene, from the office doing follow-ups and referrals and providing information, but sometimes all the way to the adjudication of the case, and then sometimes all the way when there's an appeal for the Board of Pardons and Parole, we can be there for victims 10 years or longer later. So thank you so much for your help.
I just have a brief farewell message. There's a changing of the guard with how domestic violence will be handled within UPD. 3.5 years ago, Chief Mazarin asked if I would take on the role of domestic violence coordinator for the department. At the time, my first thought was, don't mess this up. What I did not know is that in the last 3.5 years, this has become, or it became the most impactful assignment I've ever had in my 21-year career. I had the opportunity to work with many incredible advocates, investigators, and community partners. I'm extremely proud of their dedicated service. A lot is asked of our patrol officers when they respond on these complex and dangerous calls. My hat off to them. With DV now centralized, I have no doubt Sergeant Ward, his group of detectives will continue to lead and excel in the area of domestic violence. And again, I want to thank Chief Mazarin for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
I think that's all we have. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 5, UPD update here from Chief Dial and Chief.
Good morning. Couple of items of noteworthiness. Morning of June 10th, Officer David Wilson, one of our canyon officers, was the first officer on the scene of a traffic accident in Little Compton Canyon. The accident involved a semi-truck that reportedly lost its brakes coming down the canyon at a high rate of speed. The crash was in the East Falls area. The semi left the road into the forested area and caught fire. Officer Wilson moved quickly on foot to the truck with 2 other civilians following close by to try to locate the driver. The driver was finally located in the cab of that truck that was buried in debris. The driver was stuck and unable to free himself. Officer Wilson, with the help of these 2 civilians, were able to pull the driver from the truck. They were doing this while there was an active fire going on at the truck in the forested area around the truck. There's no doubt that Officer Wilson and those assisting civilians saved this individual's life. If you want to see the drama, look at KSL and look at it. There's body cam footage and footage, I think, relative to this event. To the event that Mayor Silvestrino was referring to, on Tuesday of this week, officers from Unified Police and Taylorsville responded to a suicidal person on the bridge that traverses over the Jordan River and borders the 2 jurisdictions. Officers from Taylorsville, Macomb, and Stone located a person who had just jumped from the bridge, hanging by the neck just above the water line. Officers entered the river and cut the victim down while trying to keep the victim, now unconscious, male above the water and pull him to the shore. The high and fast moving water began taking the Taylorsville officers down the river. Without hesitation, Officer Erickson from Mill Creek, who had just arrived on scene, jumped into the swift moving water, pulled the officer to the bank. Officers Meekum, Stone, and Erickson were then able to pull the victim out where paramedics paramedics rendered aid. And again, without his and their heroic actions, the Mel would have not survived. But because of their actions, the Mel is alive and stable in stable condition. Two tremendous events. I just want final comment as this year is coming to a close. We are coming to the final stage in the separation of the Unified Police and the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office. I believe it's important to remember that neither of the two victims in these two separate events really cared about the color of the uniform with a patch on the shoulder during their time of crisis. What they care about, and what we as the public care about, and deserves and is about the men and the women who wear the badge every day, who are willing to give their all, including their personal safety, to the point of potentially losing their own life. For the good of public service, I believe we should all remember that the service we provide to our communities is where the real value rests with our organizations as we separate. I appreciate what you do for us, for your communities. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Mark, you're up. Okay.
I'm gonna make this super brief today. Just by way of an update on our current vacancies that we're experiencing. Slovisa decided to add 2 positions back in, one in White City, one in Magna. So I've added those in. That brings us to a total of 30 vacant positions on the sworn side of the house. On the civilian side of the house, we've had a couple of resignations this week, which brings us to a total of 6 vacancies there. And we are still, if you look down here, there's 10 of the choose game free folks that have not resigned yet, but we fully anticipate that they will. I've been receiving those resignations over the last couple of days. I think they finally got final offers from the county just recently, so that's still in the works, but I think we're gonna be just fine there.
That's not in your count, correct?
Correct. So that's basically the update. Unless you have any questions, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Very much.
All right, item 6, UPD reorganization update for Chief Master.
Chair Board. I think Harry used the term fast and furious the other day. That's basically the last couple of weeks I can't even describe to you. I mean, the last few months have been busy, but the last couple of weeks in particular. So there's a lot happening, even in increments of 15 to 20 minutes every hour, every day. As everybody is every hand on deck and everybody moving forward. In conjunction with the folks from the sheriff's office to help get this done and to ensure again, July 1st, we talk about this constantly. Make sure everybody can operate, no interruption service, 911 calls get answered. Please show up where they need to be. I'm confident that's going to happen. I think we have the things we need in place to make sure that happens. And if there is an issue or things are this complex and life can be very unpredictable, I'm confident we got the right people and the right teamwork, including needs be working together with the sheriff's office to make sure that there is an issue that we can resolve immediately. So again, I'm very confident that will happen. So don't want you to worry about that. We have a 3-page agenda. There's a lot of stuff that we need to talk about, but that'll be done throughout the body of the meeting. I don't want to take up a lot of extra time. Only a couple of quick housekeeping items. Next week, we are moving from this building starting Monday. There are cardboard boxes everywhere and people have been packing up. So most of this building, if everything goes well, will be vacated by next week, and those units, groups will have moved into the precincts. And again, thanks to all the precincts for all the efforts that have been made by your staff and employees. I know there's been some sacrifices made. The chiefs and the lieutenants and sergeants and everybody really stepped up to make this move happen. So, and then again, our board meeting will be on, our next board meeting is scheduled for July 18th up in Mill Creek. And so we'll talk when we have that board meeting more about schedules going down the road. So that Harmony can work with all of you to figure out the best way moving forward. If we want to rotate the location of meetings, we want to keep moving in place. Just how we move forward with some of these changes. Everything else in terms of budgets and the other things that we've worked on, separation, we talk about later in the agenda. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Not seeing.
I want to tell Wayne thanks. He's been fantastic.
And you don't want to thank you for all your hard work and all the other folks that have been doing this reorganization and even those that are packing.
Really, and shoot.
We appreciate it. Item 7, Salt Lake County Law Enforcement Bureau update. Van Emmer.
Yeah, I'll be going for everything. Morning board, Chief Ackerman's in training today, so I'll be filling in for him. As Chief Maslin said, we're continually working on the transition process. Those conversations through. Next week, we're going to start our vehicle and equipment transitions. We'll be doing that over the special ops, so we'll get that ball rolling and folks will see how it goes. We had a few civilian positions that did not get filled from UPD members, so we did post that a little over a week ago. It's closing today, and we should be filling those positions here shortly. Just so you guys know, we're having a swearing in ceremony. We're having 2 separate ceremonies. We're having our first one on June 28th for sergeants and lieutenants. It'll be a promotion and as well as swearing in ceremony. The second will be July 1st. That's at Hillcrest High at 10 a.m. And that'll be the full swearing ceremony for deputies. The first one with the promotions on the sergeants and lieutenants are filming set at 4 o'clock. If you're interested to come by and show your support, you're more. Just a quick update on the school safety bill as I'm a county school security chief. We met first time on Monday with the school security task force, the state level task force, where Matt Pennington, state security chief, gave a brief update. They do have their basic training curriculum up at their legal department for approval. And over the past couple of weeks, I've been meeting with the Valley chiefs to kind of figure out where our role is in this new school security bill. It's going to take some time. There's a lot of language in it. It's going to be a while before we get it all squared away, but there's a lot of positive support from the community as well as them. So I'm going to keep it brief as well. That's all I have unless there's any questions for me.
Yeah, quick question. You said you were down to civilian. Were you able to fill all your sworn positions?
Yeah, we left a few positions open intentionally. But yeah, most of them. So, and then the civilian, we were down to a handful that didn't come from UPD. So.
Item 8, UPD reorganization discussion. Just as Director Keeley just said, Maz, I really appreciate the immense amount of work that has gone into this. I really like Maz. Sometimes we talk on it so much that it's probably getting tired of me. So it's been an interesting last year and a half. Excited to get to this next stage in this. Just appreciate all the work. I know we were in here the other day. You mentioned this, but just boxes and boxes everywhere. So appreciate all the work that's going into it, and hopefully folks are ready to be settled.
I'll just echo what you said, Mayor. There are more people to be thanked about this transition. It's been work for both sides of the house, if you will. And I'm, as a board member, as mayor, I'm super pleased about the cooperation that we have been able to achieve between Salt Lake County and UPD and all of the jurisdictions. And this has been a super hard thing to do, but it looks like the trains are rolling on the track, and that law enforcement services in this county have not suffered as a result of it. So, you know, it's a forced parting, but thanks to everybody who contributed to making it go smoothly.
Okay, item 9, finance committee update.
Well, I'm going to be very short because I don't want to use them. So I'm going to be quick on that. But we did have Chief provided a number of officers and whatnot. And then we also discussed the final amendments for 2023-24. And we also have a discussion about the adoption of the 2024. All that's going to be on our agenda. Item 14 and item 16.
Thank you. Item 10, approval of updated policies, resolution 240602.
I'm bringing the water along because I'll be up for a little while, so. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The policies, we actually went through UPD policies in some detail. It's not something that we're quite ready to say, this policy says this policy says this, but, by the way, I'm a little emotional today. Stuff that we're gonna miss our members. Commissioner, thank you for lifelong friendship. And Sheriff, thank you as well. But I'll get through this. I knew this day would be tough. We've been working hard to try to prep for this, and a lot of it has been tough discussions and tough negotiations. Thank you as well, by the way, Mayor. And it's here now, and there's a lot to cover on the policies. I'll be quick on that. We've been working for months on trying to go through our policies and update. And mostly the purpose of this update now is just to make sure that our policies are approved by the board in terms of the fact that when there's a reference to the sheriff in any of our policies, we're simply asking that there be an approval that on all our policies that reference the sheriff, we now say the chief of police. And there are policies we'll present in more detail when we're done. We still have 2-3 weeks of work ahead of us at least to finish our review of the policies. We're starting the Merit Commission policies, and in our first meeting, we're going to present nominees for the UPD Merit Commission, who will take over the role of serving the UPD and its new separate Merit Commission. So at that point, when they approve their own rules, actually, so when we submit those, it's something that the Merit Commission itself approves, and they're going to be quite similar to the policies that we currently have, the procedures we currently have. So there's not going to be a lot of change there. One of the changes is that the labor will have a nominee, and they've selected somebody that will present at our first meeting as their nominee as well. I'm quite pleased with their selection, by the way, and we'll talk about it then. But so for today, we're just asking that you approve the general resolution that modifies all policies within the UPD where there's a reference to the sheriff that will now be a reference to the chief of police. And we'll go through more detail after that, but at least so that it's clear that as of July 1, we have a new CEO and that person will be authorized to act in all capacities pursuant to policy. And with that is the request for today. We'll update policies more later.
Any questions? Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, Jeff Substitute, I will move that we approve 24-06-02 of 2024 to certain policies.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion. Second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 11, cooperative agreement for SWAT and special operations, resolution 2406.
Thank you. So one of the two significant areas where we needed to have an agreement in place before July 1 is on SWAT and on property and evidence. And we spent a lot of time on this language. I also want to thank Bridget, who's here, and Ralph, who's not here, Ralph Chambliss, for their efforts trying to put together cooperative agreements to deal with these two issues going forward. And we've done that. So on this one, what we've agreed to do is combine a SWAT team. The UPD would be in charge of the SWAT team. There are agreements about housing UPD personnel at special operations. It includes that will be
with a charge to the UPD, but that we do agree to purchase equipment for the county people. A lot of the additional county people already have equipment because they've been on the UPD SWAT team. So the people that will be coming forward are already trained and used to working with the team, and it'll be a joint team. The agreement covers the terms of that, and we're pleased that we were able to work out a cooperative agreement on that. And the agreement itself governs the terms of that agreement, that rather than what the resolution says. I'll explain why that's important in the next one. But that the resolution just generally identifies that it governs where we get to store our SWAT equipment, how many people can be there. And this has been a tough discussion because the Law Enforcement Bureau intends on using the Special Operations Building as its precinct for its Law Enforcement Bureau. So we're all trying to work out space there that may not be as adequate as we all would like, but in reality, it works for us. It's a one-year agreement. Obviously, we can't renew it if that's working out, but in the meantime, this gets us, this protects the law enforcement function of SWAT. It protects the team that's been working together already, and we'll continue to work together. And it's an agreement that we think benefits law enforcement and both the Law Enforcement Bureau and the UPD SWAT. So recommendation is that we move forward with this. We need an MOU in place so that we can continue to function as a joint team. That's why it's important that we bring it for you now. We'll, with your approval, we'll sign the MOU and I'll answer any questions you have.
Questions, comments?
Yes.
MOU acronym, please.
Oh, memorandum of understanding. It's like a contractor agreement between entities.
Say it again.
Oh, it's a memorandum of understanding.
Thank you.
That's it, just like it's a contract between public entities. There are different ways you can do the contracts. This is one where we're cooperating with them in terms of a joint operation, and we're calling it an MOU for purposes of this.
Is this something that we hope we can demonstrate over the next year, that it could be more of a long term? Or are we set on meeting the deadline of July of 2025 and having completely separated? And if we do choose to coexist beyond that date, or is that going to run us afoul with the legislature and meeting their intent for the separation?
I don't think a cooperative agreement on SWAT or anything else would run afoul of the legislation. In fact, I think the sponsor even said you can have these cooperative agreements, just not be a single structured organization with the sheriff as the CEO. So I think that it won't, it's different because in any MOU, there's a give and take cooperation. UFA is part of our SWAT team. South Salt Lake is part of our SWAT team. And there's nothing that in those agreements that would run afoul. Certainly, there's nothing that would indicate that a continued cooperative SWAT agreement involving the Law Enforcement Bureau is something that would cause problems for really any of us going forward. So, A, I don't think it's a problem to extend it. The second question is a little more of the planning process we're going to go through the next year in terms of, as we look for a property and evidence building, do we look for a place to store SWAT? I think that's an open question that maybe they would like our SWAT equipment out of their building so they have more space, and we still could cooperate on SWAT. It might be a little bit different structure than we have right now, but I believe that continued SWAT cooperation will not be governed by where we're housed. I think that can still go forward, and as we look at space for property and evidence and possibly special operations type storage, it still doesn't mean we can't cooperate going forward with the SWAT team.
All right.
Mr. Chair, Jeff Sosner, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 24-06-02 of 2024, approving the cooperative agreement SWAT operation between UPD and Salt Lake County.
Second.
Just clarification on that. I think you said 240602. It's 24060330.
And I've got to tell you, because the resolutions were flying yesterday, there may be some misnumbering. What I'd suggest we do is, and this is not Harmony's fault, it's the fact that resolutions were going out at 7 o'clock last night. So Perhaps what we do is interlineate the appropriate number. I don't know if you know what that is, Harmony, and then we can make.
You know, I'm looking at what's in our packet, and that's.
Yeah, the resolution itself has an O2.
Is you already approved an O2? This should be O3, then I would just.
Oh, that's my question, to be O3, if that's the appropriate.
We'll interlineate it to O3 and provide a printed copy that says O3, and we may have to do that on other resolutions as well.
So we've got motion in a second. Will be changed to 3. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. Item 12, cooperative agreement for property and evidence resolution 2406.
Thank you. On this resolution, the number may or may not be right. Again, I think this should be 04. So if it doesn't say 04, let's change it to that. There's an interlineation we need to have on this resolution too. The resolution refers to this as a month-to-month agreement. Technically, it's not. So what I'd like to do is interlay, take out the words month-to-month to say pursuant to the agreement, and we will fix that in a final, but I'll explain the agreement. So the property and evidence agreement took a long time to work out. And ultimately, it involves a trade-off on a couple of different areas. UPD budgeted $59,000 for property and evidence, and we went back and forth on that issue. Ultimately, it's been agreed that that is the amount that we will pay. We will, for property and evidence, it is a minimum 6-month term. It is a 1-year agreement, but that after 6 months, we can terminate on 90 days notice. So it's a hybrid. It's not a month-to-month. It's actually a minimum term with a provision to get out on 90 days notice. UPD will manage its own evidence and supply people for that purpose. The county will be in charge of the facility and overall management of property and evidence. After the 1 year, we agreed to be out, so we will move our evidence and our property from there. That's part of our effort going forward, is to locate a facility for that purpose and other purposes as we can. But this allows the continued operation. We have high confidence that the people who have been working together will continue to work together well in the management of property and evidence. And like I said, it preserves our access to our evidence, and it preserves the county's ability to take over management of the facility overall. So I think this is a fair agreement. We also included an additional forensics vehicle as part of the deal in exchange for what is probably far below market actual rent for that facility for the next year. So that's on the asset transfer list I can talk about, but with an interlineation that we'll provide to the board, so it's not mischaracterized as a month-to-month agreement. I would ask for the board's approval on the resolution and the agreement.
My comment a little bit. We got that agreement late last night, and I've been reviewing it, and there are some things such as the forensics evidence lockers that were added to that late last night. There would be a cost to the county to replace those lockers. So there's some pieces of this agreement that haven't actually been reviewed by me or some of my staff. I know Harry's been working with the DA's office, and the DA's office could comment as well. But for me to have, if you agree to this and me to have to sell it to the county council, it's going to be a challenge selling that to the council, knowing that there could be additional costs to the county. So I just want to point that out.
So if I could respond, we tried to, I mean, there are a lot of unresolved issues, including the evidence lockers and forensics. We were hoping to have a forensics agreement in place, and there is part of it is over that issue. There's a discussion about an additional drone that's ongoing that that we haven't resolved. But the purpose of this is trying to separate that out. And I thought it was separate from that. We can talk about the lockers, but the question is, are they movable or not? And that's a question we don't know. If they're not movable, they stay here. If they are movable, we like to use them because we'll need to pay to replace them. And I know that in trying to get all this done yesterday, so we would have agreements to submit, there are some areas of disagreement. In my conversations with the DA's office, this is ready to go as is. I'm not sure what to do with this, because I thought there was an agreement in place on this, recognizing that we know there's still a lot to talk about.
Did we have Bridget comment?
Yeah, of course.
She's been.
Yeah, if I may, the property and evidence agreement regards the county and the UPD's cooperative agreement for how evidence will be managed that is presently in the property and evidence building. We do align in terms of the cooperative agreement with respect to the management of the evidence and the rate that UPD will be paying to the county, including the forensics vehicle that Harry just mentioned. What the sheriff is talking about is an agreement regarding forensics. And there are some items of forensic equipment, including some evidence lockers that are used by the forensic techs to check in and out evidence as they're using those. We have not reached agreement on those, in part because we were not able to review the documents until well into the evening yesterday. As Harry indicated, I sent off the final approved versions of the SWAT and the property and evidence agreements to him yesterday after 5 p.m. So we've been working, up to the last minute on all of these things. So I think we are aligned with respect to SWAT and the property and evidence agreements, specifically with the interlineation on the resolution. However, the sheriff is absolutely correct on the forensic side and the evidence lockers. We have not reached agreement there.
Sherry, can you tell us again, the intermediation, rather than month to month, it's gonna say what?
It's just pursuant to the attached agreement. I don't want to mischaracterize the agreement. It speaks for itself and it governs the thing. So in terms of the resolution, Bridget brought it to my attention that it still refers to it as a month to month, and technically it's not. So we just want to say that the agreement governs the terms of the resolution is governed by the terms of the agreement, not any other characterization.
So if we approve this agreement, the county still has to approve it.
Correct.
Still have to approve it. And if they come back with changes, then we can consider that, but at least we'll be on the road toward something if we adopt this.
And we will continue to work to resolve the other disputes starting today. I mean, there are other areas where I think we can resolve it. There's not an agreement right now in forensics. I did have an agreement sent over and clearly no, it's not ready to submit to the board because there's not an agreement on its terms. So we're going to continue. Those are probably the two areas. There was not agreement on drones, although what we have before you in this resolution is to transfer what we've agreed on with the possibility that there may be another drone going with it. Same thing on the vehicles. There's a question on one of the vehicles on whether we pick the right one. So what I would ask for on the asset is the freedom to maybe substitute a comparable vehicle out. I'll explain that in the next one. But
That relates to transfer of assets. That's the next one.
yeah. But so, and again, these have been tied together as we're trying to nail down the agreements we can, because these are things that have to be in place by July 1. I still think we can work out an agreement on forensics that will make this easier to approve, and we're still working on that. I would ask you to approve this as it's been submitted, the agreement itself, with the exception of the interrelation on the resolution, and recognizing what the sheriff said, we will work hard to resolve our other issues in the next few days.
Could we approve a resolution today that adds some language that gave some latitude for you all to work that out? Or is this premature? Should we've got 10, 11 days left in the month. Not that any of us want another meeting, but would it be more appropriate to have the exact language ready for adoption in the future?
So the lease is with the county. The facility is run by the sheriff's office, but the lease agreements with the county, I'm hoping that this agreement doesn't change, even if the forensics agreement needs to, that we're still working on. So what I'm suggesting is that I think what the sheriff has said is there's stuff that changed in the forensics agreement that calls whether this will be approved into question rather than the agreement itself is problematic. I think that if we look at the big picture, we will continue to work to resolve those. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Sheriff, but I think that if we can resolve some other issues, this will fly through or at least not be opposed by the sheriff or the county. And I do think that when you're trying to package all this, this is something we needed an answer for, because there was other things we would have to do if we don't have an agreement. I think this agreement will stand on its own, and we'll work to resolve these. We may need another board meeting. If we do, it could be electronic, and it would be near the middle to end of next week if we do it. But I don't think we need that yet. If we do, we'll ask the chair to set that, and we could do it in a way that's electronic agreement or electronic meeting where we talk about if we need to change this, we can. I don't think we'll have to. But it is something that I believe that even though it went faster than I wanted to all at once, there could be a change we need to make in it. But I think the agreements have been vetted. The resolutions were a little bit thrown together quickly, and I apologize for having to interlineate numbers and language. But when you're working at 7 o'clock at night on 3 different agreements, in addition to forensics that we're trading back and forth last night and the drone issue, there's still going to be unanswered questions. I do think that we've all tried to move forward in good faith. We've all tried to move forward in a way that makes necessary concessions, but still protects our various departments as they move forward. So when it comes down to this, I still think that this agreement is okay to move forward with today. And if we need to amend it for some reason next week, we can. But I think in recognition that what we're looking for is as global a resolution of everything as possible, we may need to have a follow-up agreement next week, or it could come up on the board like on its first meeting in July. But
clean up. I think we go ahead with, even if it's just an offer, if it kind of comes back with something, sounds like that notice lockers might be handled.
I think we can resolve it with the forensics agreement that is still being negotiated.
Just ask that, do you have anything to add to this? No, I think everything's spot on. It's just, we're down to like brass tacks, small items, I'm trying. Not deal breakers, right? This is stuff that should be. Not deal breaker. This, if any agreements we get approved at this point will help us advance stuff.
The evidence lockers are about a $20,000 item. The drones a $16,000 item. Those are really to the point where we are, I think, talking about that stuff that we don't agree on right now, but we may just agree to resolve. So ultimately, because they're capitalized assets, they'll come before you for final determination. And we may have a shared meeting to review the forensics agreement and an additional property transfer at some point next week. And it would be a 5-10 minute meeting, but hopefully that's it. There may be other issues, I don't know. Again, the forensics agreement was the last agreement. So it's probably had the least amount of time for the DA's office and the sheriff to go through it. There's a lot of stuff in it. Mind you, we've been talking about it for quite some time. But it involves what lab equipment goes, what lab equipment stays, what lab equipment is attached to the building, what isn't. It's more complex than we could bring before the board today.
Mr. Chair, I think I'm prepared to make a motion to, and I think the resolution is probably number 24-06-4. And so I'm going to move to adopt resolution 20-06-04 of 2024 to approve a cooperative agreement for property and evidence with the elimination in the 1, 2, 3, 4th recital to change on a month-to-month basis to pursuant to the attached agreement.
Great, we have a motion, so second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Item 13, interim transfer of asset agreement resolution 240605.
So this is a wrap-up provision regarding drones that we've agreed upon to transfer and vehicles that we've agreed to transfer. Bridget brought it to my attention that there's a discrepancy on the F-150 truck. We're going to meet right after this and see if we've identified the right truck that they had an expectation to receive, but it's going to be either that F-150 or another. So what I'm going to ask you to do is approve the resolution with a note that we may swap out another F-150 of approximately the same age and value. as we look at this, an approximate means within a year or so, and value is probably quite similar, just so that we can get this approved today so they can have a forensics truck. But aside from that, there is still the possibility of another drone being added to it. It would come next week, and we're not asking you to interlineate that. It's just simply that's something that I believe we can either do in our first July meeting, if that's just one drone, or we can look at that if we need to next week. So essentially, this transfer agreement is kind of wrapped up in the discussions regarding the property and evidence amount and the ability for the forensics group to move forward with having vehicles. So that's why we're recommending approval of this, with just the caveat that the identified vehicle may be switched out for another comparable F-150.
If I may add, Terry, I apologize. Just before the meeting started, it was brought to my attention that the interceptor vehicle that is identified on that list may also not be accurate. We are anticipating that it's the unit number that has been assigned to Nicole Garrett. It looks like the two interceptors are both assigned to the hold list. They're unassigned and are on the hold list, so there might be an additional change there on one of the vehicle numbers. But generally, we're in alignment and we continue to have discussions about other asset transfers. So this may not be the last that you see.
Our two vehicles may need to be adjusted, but again, the agreement is that Nicole's vehicle will be transferred. And the vehicle being driven by Adam will be transferred as well, and that's the F-150. So if we've somehow misidentified them, we will substitute the correct designations in and just ask for your indulgence on that issue. Again, these are issues that were being traded last night, and we'll meet right after this to identify the appropriate vehicles and bring the resolution to the board. If you're okay with that sort of flexibility here, it is an interceptor, a truck, and then the third vehicle on there is meant to replace a vehicle that we had already agreed to send to the county, but afterwards discovered it was sold to Salt Lake City. So we owe them another vehicle, and this is where the fast and furious comes in, where we're sometimes doing things where we get ahead of ourselves. So they're entitled to another vehicle to replace the one that we agreed to sell them that in fact we can't sell because it had been sold already.
You're gonna give them the mobile companion post.
Pardon?
You're gonna give them the mobile companion post.
That is open to discussion this year, but we're not gonna give them the mobile command post yet. So we still have to talk about that. But we do have at least an agreement that this vehicle is in our inventory. It hasn't been sold to anybody else, so this is part of an agreement to replace the vehicle that was unfortunately sold before we could transfer it to Salt Lake County. So that's why the three vehicles were on there.
Yeah, questions, comments for Harry?
Here, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 24-05 on the transfer of assets agreement.
Second.
Great.
I'll second that, subject to the flexibility to post trade about a couple of trucks.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. Move into item 14, fiscal year 2023 to 2024 final budget amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. This is the final budget amendment for the budget that we're in right now. Oh, gosh. This is one morning I wish I had access to drugs. And something that I calm me down. Anyway, very important. Anyway, so moving on with the budget amendments, I did present some budget amendments to the finance committee on Tuesday. Nothing has changed on that with the exception of the payouts, the leave payouts. And that was, if you will recall at the time, the leave payouts that were in there were the ones that had already been paid. But we have, as you know, several, more personnel that will be leaving, and starting with the sheriff's office on July 1st. So those leave payouts will not be done until July 19th. So, we went through and calculated, now that we know who are leaving, we will be getting those payouts. And so we ran those calculations and those have now been added to what the payouts were. So that's why you will see, and those are the ones that are still highlighted in red in your budget amendment. Mayor Silvestrini caught, I did forget to update his. So I did make that correction and I sent you out a new budget amendment this morning. His was originally 105,000, somewhere around there. It's now 194.
Bank error not in your favor.
Yeah, he still informed me, even though it wasn't in his paper, so that was very good of him. But anyway, so that I did send out an amended budget resolution, and that number has now changed. Everything else stayed the same. All the fun on the budget oh my goodness. On the budget amendment resolutions, each of the funds still remain the same, with the exception of Mill Creek, which had the increase to 194,600. So the overall amendments, the total fiscal impact is the 2,842,412. And again, the biggest chunk of that are the payouts.
The version we have in front of us is the most current.
I'm sorry.
The version we have in front of us in our packet is the latest version.
Yes. It's got the 2,842,000. Yes, that is the most current version, the correct version. Yes.
Yeah, the one that says 2,753,000 is not right.
No, it's the 2,842,412. That's what you would be approving. It's on your resolution here, or it's on the resolution that I sent out this morning. And also I sent out an updated budget amendment worksheet this morning. Reflect that. And again, it's only Mill Creek's that reflects the change. Everyone else is that has a change. Everyone else is the same.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I think this is the appropriate time to raise this. So the way this shakes out with this budget amendment, and this is really complicated, I think, but there are, based upon the fact that that Mill Creek used an amount of its precinct fund balance in the prior year to pay the member fee, that ours is lower than maybe some of the rest of them, fortunately at least. And the effect of this budget amendment, given the way that uncompensated leave has been portioned, I would say, is to require Mill Creek to basically pay in about $248,000 of additional funding to preserve the departmental fund balance at the statutory minimum of 5%. And I can tell you that Mill Creek is prepared to do that. We have the money to do that, and to avoid a finding on the audit, if depending on what we decide to do, we will do that prior to June 30th. However, the way that uncompensated leave has been calculated with respect to this amendment. As I understand this, and you can call me if I'm wrong, but basically what Debbie's done is to take the officers, take the liability there that for the officers are actually leaving each precinct and apportion that liability to the precinct. So that means that there could be disproportionate amounts of uncompensated leave being paid if more officers leave one precinct versus another. I don't know what the reasons for that might be. It could be officers with specialties that think that they're had a better than the sheriff's law enforcement bureau decided to leave out of one precinct versus another. Could be somebody doesn't like a chief and wants to work for the sheriff. Could be anything. And my question really to the board is this. that's certainly a way to do it, and if we decide to do it that way, fine. But, and I don't know how the numbers shake out if we were to do it a different way, but there's another way to look at that, which is to say, look, this is like a one-time event where we're shedding officers to the law enforcement bureau due to the compelled separation of these two entities. We could take the entire uncompensated leave for the whole department that's being paid. And then rather than applying that to the precinct where the officers left from, and realize that these numbers are widely variable because they depend on how much vacation time a particular officer might get, how much vacation time they may have used versus not used. All that affects what each precinct is paid. We could take that whole number and say it's a departmental obligation and multiply that times the shared services formula and do the numbers that way. And full disclosure, I'm not doing this because I don't know if this would save Mill Creek money or cost Mill Creek money. I don't know how the numbers shake out, but it occurs to me that in terms of looking at this, it might be fair to do it that way. And I don't know if there are any ideas about, if I'm wrong about that, I'm totally, it's open book kind of thing, but I just wonder if that's a better way to do it.
Well, I'll be transparent. I was kind of caught off guard by this based on what we discussed on Tuesday and what came through at 5 o'clock last night. Because I think we're on the county side, we've absorbed a lot of additional costs as it relates to the separation. And this group has enjoyed the benefit of using the UPD budget for the expenses related to the separation. So I think we were relying on a larger fund balance transfer back out of the countywide fund, and this puts a huge dent in it. So I would ask to understand this better. I don't quite understand how this was calculated, and what it means. I don't recall how we did this when we separated Harriman and some of the other groups. And I would appreciate if we could have a meeting next week to give us time to look at this before approving this, because I was able to share this with my CFO last night, but we definitely did not have an opportunity to look at this closely and examine it and understand it. And I'd appreciate an opportunity to sit down with you, Debbie, and understand how this was done. And maybe that would allow us an opportunity to look at it both ways and make an appropriate decision about how to do this. Because my understanding is the county, at least I anticipated that leave would transfer with the officer coming to the county. And when they took that leave, that's when it would be compensated. So I was very surprised and taken aback by this and what that did, what the impact of that was to our fund balance.
No, the policy is that if you leave, UPD will pay out the vacation and regardless of how much vacation, how many years of service you have. And then for the sick, for sworn, if they have 20 years of service in, for civilians, if they have 30 years of service in, then they are allowed to get 25% of their sick leave balance. So I think like UPD is required to make those payouts when those who are leaving go to the sheriff's office. And so that's what we're having to project in here. I don't know that we can change that. I mean, I'm more than, I can explain it now. If you want to have another meeting next week, I'm happy with that as well. I'm just following what the policy is and what we're required to do.
I mean, I think.
But we can change policy.
I think an explanation, if you're prepared to do that now, might be useful. Even if we have another meeting, just so we leave this meeting with at least some understanding about it, and then people could come and just. I mean, I met with Debbie this morning at 8:30 because I had some questions about numbers, and frankly, I'm proud of myself that I caught it tonight.
But I may have I share Aaron's surprise when that came out, that large number. And I was under the impression that the county was going to assume the liability. And I may have been wrong on that. But, it was confusing, and so I'm a little reluctant to say I fully understand this enough to go for the budget the way it is. And that's at the risk of having to give my plaque back. I So I share the confusion, but I don't know if we can resolve that today or not.
Yeah, so as Mayor Silvestrini pointed out, the way we do the leave payouts is based on who is in the precinct or in the county or in the township. That wherever that employee is, when they leave UPD, we take the payout, we make the payout out of that precinct. So that's how these have been calculated. And it's true, you know, you may have more, one precinct may have more personnel that are leaving, and so you will get, that precinct will get a bigger hit this year. And it's all because of this reorganization that, you know, the changes that are happening. So this year, it is quite a shock to everybody. Again, as I stated, we're just following what the policy says, and so, but I think what the mayor is referring to is possibly looking at how we allocate that distribution. Right now, we're doing it by precinct. Is there a better formula or a better methodology on how to do that? Because these payouts have to be made regardless of how we do it. And I don't know if there's a better methodology. I know we discussed this morning, maybe using the shared service formula. The shared service formula is for shared services. These are specific to each precinct. So it would be, you know, a change from going, you know, to just specifically with shared service to applying it to the precincts overall as well. So, so if you look at how we did the fund balances here, and you can follow along on each one of yours. So what we took was the prior year fund balance for each of the funds, each of the precincts. So that's what the first line in green is what your fund balance was at the end of last year. And then we're applying what your revenues are, the revenues you'll be receiving this year. And then that appropriation of deficit, that's the one that we, where we had that finding from the audit of that $3 million. And so the first payment was paid last year, and this is your final payment. Each agreed that you would pay it off in 2 years. And so this is your final payment on that deficit to eliminate that in the general fund. Then, of course, we've got what your precinct expenditures are going to be for this year. Again, those do have a little bit of wiggle room. We haven't finished the year yet, and we haven't received all. We haven't received like the credit card payments and everything. We did err on the high side, so hopefully that, you know, there'll be some little some room to come down there. But we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, but there'll be some adjustments there. And then we had the amendments throughout the year. So throughout the year, whenever anyone requested to use their fund balance to pay for an expenditure, that is now where it's being reflected is in this fund balance calculation. Now, this year, we have the benefit of still budgeting the wages and benefits on the averages. The year we're in right now, that was based on averages. Now, reminder, next year, it's based on actuals. Okay, so there will not be a lot of wiggle room next year like there is this year. Because this year they were based on averages. So if all those wages and benefits weren't spent, you get the benefit of that surplus. And so that's what's being added back in to your fund balance. So if you had some wages and benefits that weren't spent, that's being added back into your fund balance. And then here's where we got hit. This is the leaving payouts. And that was all the personnel that have left this year and will be leaving come July 1st. And that's the calculations that we're showing right there. That's where you guys can decide if we want to relook how that allocation is done. That right now is the impact to your individual precincts.
Yeah, Sheriff, a really basic question here. When these new officers and employees come over to the county, I mean, I understand the county is not going to be responsible financially for any of the payouts, but is everyone starting fresh? At their, you know, 1 week vacation and no sick leave and all that stuff?
Well, I'm gonna correct you for a second, because county is responsible for the payouts, because this is Salt Lake County. This is Salt Lake County on this payment, so the county is paying. That, so to say the county's not, that's not
Forgive me
accurate.
for my improper.
When the
connection.
county comes, when the officers go over, they'll have 80 hours of leave. Upfront, which costs the county again. So, you know, would have been easier if we could have just transferred the funds from UPD to the sheriff's office and let everybody keep their vacation balances. But that's not what the UPD policy is. The UPD policy says that you have to cash them out. So if we did it that way, then this cost would go down because people and officers would, there's many officers that have a lot of vacation and really have to cash that out and lose that portion.
So I got it right in my head then that these officers they're gonna benefit by doubling up. If someone,
In a sense, but if you think about, if an officer has, say, 300 hours of leave, that 300 hours of leave today, and if they still have that 300 hours of leave in 5 years, that 5 years of leave is worth a lot more than what it is today because of wages.
but someone is going to cash them out on the 300 hours of leave.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna transfer over to
And the
under
county
your
has to
employee
pay,
with 300 hours of leave,
not
but
300,
say-
80.
with 80
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah,
If they cash
county's
out,
paying again,
So will they,
just this and
will they be paid on the difference, on the delta, or will they be paid on the entire 300 hours, to use this example?
according to the UPD policy, UPD has to cash them out.
And that makes sense. I mean, the uncompensated leave is a liability of UPD. The 80-hour thing is really, if you look at it, that's really just an incentive that the county gave to these and officers that decided to join them. They said, well, that's like part of their compensation. So it's still, we would be obligated if an officer terminated from UPD to go anyplace or retire, we would be obligated to pay what they have banked up according to policies in uncompensated leave. Or uncompensated leave, actually, really, because it's, you know, there's some kinds of things that we don't pay out, right? Sick time you don't use. There's a certain amount of that wouldn't get paid out. Vacation time, you always get paid out if you haven't used your vacation time. You've earned that. It's so these guys, when you say they're double dipping, they're really not. They're severing their employment with UPD. They're being paid what they are owed by UPD. The county has said, in order to convince people to come, we're giving you this extra leave, even though you may not have accrued it. Does that make sense? It's like giving them.
Yeah, I've never had an employer do that for me.
Well, you haven't, but if you change jobs and you negotiate that with your new employer, you could get that.
And if you,
These guys are negotiating with a new employer, their compensation.
Taxpayer money.
Well, it is, but it's what the county has agreed to offer them. It's not, it has nothing to do with us.
and if you take a look at when UPD was created, everybody was Salt Lake County. Salt Lake County transferred those funds to UPD, so everybody kept their leave. Nothing was done the way it's being done now. That's our challenge is if we did it the way we did it when you created UPD, we wouldn't have this issue. But UPD changed the policy after that, but all the deputies that had to come to UPD because it was, disbanded from the sheriff's office, kept their leave and everybody came over. So that liability came there, but now, the policy of UPD changed, so.
Thank you, Sheriff.
I have a question. If the 2.8 million that we need in the lead liability, why wouldn't we, because that's a liability of the entire organization. It could be, and it obviously is disproportionate to maybe Milton, is gonna feel more pain than at Copperton. Why didn't we take the 2.8 out of the overall general fund and share it equally? Rather than each silo taking their own hit. I might have had somebody swing into Magnet Precinct for 2 months. And now they're going to the sheriff, but I'm on the hook for that liability out of my precinct. I think it should be shared among the bigger fund balance rather than the silos.
So you're saying apply a formula across.
We know the number 2.8.
To the regular general fund, take that 2.8 out of the general fund. That's what he's.
There's not enough.
So take the 2.8 out of the general fund and then apply the shared service formula.
No.
among-
I think
It's
the
not
answer is there's not enough in the general fund balance to do that.
Is that why we didn't do it that way? Did that drop us below the statutory minimum? I'm like,
Would.
Well, and remember, these are precinct employees, they're not shared service employees, so the
but
shared
they're
service.
the responsibility of the UPD. They're a UPD employee. Their leave is everybody's responsibility, not just Magnet, not just Mill Creek. I was just wondering why we chose to pay them out of each precinct rather than the larger general fund.
Well, that's how I mean,
Is that
and not
down
just
by the
that, always,
formula?
it's because they're working specifically for your precinct at the time, and their precinct expenditures, and that's what you're paying into every year, so you're paying into that, and that's how you're building your, remember, as your funds get closed out each year, that any excess that you have is falling into your fund, into your specific fund, precinct fund. So that's where it's being accumulated. So now to come back and say, oh, well, we want to keep what we've accumulated, and then, but we want you to take the expense of that and have the shared service, that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, he wasn't referring to the shared service, just so
Or
you
just
know.
the general fund.
He's referring to general fund, not shared service,
So
so.
general fund is
Shared
shared
service.
service.
Yes, all of it is. Your precinct fund is UPD's too. Every one of yours
I don't
is
know that.
UPD's.
It's a UPD asset.
Well, that's, it's a good point though, because all of your precinct funds are part of UPD. If you took it out of the general fund, you just have to make it up out of your precinct funds if you're under the.
But if we did that, we'd have to take kind of what you've accumulated over the years. I mean, that would, we'd have to take what you've accumulated also over the years and pay that to the general fund, because you've been accumulating the benefit of that, not the general fund.
So what Debbie's just saying here argues against what I was questioning about applying the shared service formula. So maybe you got it right, we just do this.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Maybe maybe your methodology is more appropriate than what I was talking about, and we just do it according to this.
I'm also feeling like it might be too complicated change, but just a clarification, is the way that the leave out is here, is that because of policy or because it's just the way we've done it?
Well, I shouldn't say it's like a UPD policy. It is more like accounting, okay? If an employee is within a fund or within a department, that fund or that department has to account for those expenses. And so at the end of the year, that's an expense of that fund and of that precinct. And that's where it needs to be accounted for.
And when you have a random person retire or leave UPD, that's how you pay them out now, is out of that precinct fund.
Consistent.
So that makes sense. And the other thing that you said that resonates with me, Debbie, is that you know, if somebody hasn't used their vacation time, that and therefore it hasn't been paid out, traditionally that would be down to the benefit of precinct fund balance, like, you know, for Mill Creek. So to change it now would maybe be less fair to precincts, because you got the benefit, you get the benefit of the savings, and then you're trying to spread the cost out among everybody. So I get it now. I mean, I think I understand.
Mayor, if I could, just two things. Number one, under Utah law, vacation is considered fully vested, and therefore is when somebody leaves, we're required to pay that out. There's not an option. Now, it's possible, that's, that, the way the county did it before was based upon an agreement that was signed by each individual officer to defer that, but there's no question, we have an obligation to pay vacation out upon termination or resignation or whatever it is. So that's not optional for us to try to work out something. I think we did try to work it out on sick leave, that's different. We can condition that, but on vacation time, it's vested each time there's money put in for vacation. Second thing, I think that the reason why the county probably got hit harder than others in terms of the transfers is because a lot of the positions were fully funded by the county, such as gangs, MIUs, canyons, and these are the large part of what has transferred to the county. So it's logical under those circumstances that when the county's pulling its funding for positions, they're going to go to the county anyway. And it's just the way it washes out, but still there are other areas where yes, people have precincts, some people have other shared services. I just in terms of explaining it though, that the way we've done it is the way we're doing it on this one in the past. And it's a function of the precinct asset or precinct silos that sometimes do create accounting problems, but it's the way we're set up. And I just think that going forward, I wouldn't recommend we change that because it's been the way we've done it in the past. We've done it since we created the silos. I also think that under the circumstances, it's just a factor that we were losing county funded positions anyway. And so of course, those people are the most likely to go to the county.
All right, we do have a public hearing on this item. So unless there's any last comments real quick.
I'd still like to delay it a week so we can dig into it and understand it.
Let's hold our public hearing and then we can continue to discuss and motions can be made. So I would entertain.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to open the public hearing on the final budget amendments for fiscal year 2020.
Why would we hold the public hearing if we're gonna delay the vote?
Because we have to have a public hearing, it's been noticed, and you not have time to notice it again with the next meeting in a week. Statutorily, you have to give more notice.
In a week.
Pardon?
You have to give more notice than a week.
Yes.
Okay.
So, sorry, we have a motion for the public hearing. If I get a second, then I'll play.
It has a second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Go ahead. Yep.
After this vote, would it be appropriate for a 2 or 3 minute break? I would like to.
Yeah, let me say this. All we're doing is accepting public comment on this.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean we can't discuss it. That doesn't mean we can't defer consideration of the adoption of it until next week or something like that, if that's appropriate. I'm particularly supportive of giving people time to take a look at this. But I think because we've noticed a public hearing.
No, I agree with that.
Okay. And I would love a 2 or 3 minute break too.
So we have a motion and a second to open public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are open public comment on this item. Do we have any public comments?
I do have one question. Do we have enough time? Do we have to have a public hearing for the next one if we do this again?
I don't think so. I mean, Harry can correct me, but I believe that the board has the ability to modify the budget based upon public comment that we might receive at the public hearing. That's the reason for the public hearing. So it's common to amend the budget after you've gotten the public comment.
The numbers could change.
Correct.
Okay, any online comments? Seeing none. Entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. Motion in a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion to recess the board meeting for a minute.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so we're still on this item, but we do have a motion to recess for say 3 to 5 minutes.